Morning from yammybtv. Wishing you all well today. Sending loads of love as usual. Now, the educational topic of today is a mixture of two things, but they do join together at the same time, if you get what I mean. And I can go back right from the beginning of time when this thing started. Basically, what we're talking about here today is the drug testing program and the IPPP scheme, whatever it's called, which is the basic for the bad behaved, standard, which you're in between, but you're all right, and enhanced, where you get extra privileges. So you're just saying that you got basic if you're being bad behaved, and you get $250 a week. Instead of having your 2 visits a week on the standard one, you're down to 1 visit or 2 visits of 30 minutes duration each. If you're enhanced now, you get 3 visits a month, if you're getting visits, of course, which you'll get an hour or 2 hours long. I think the standard one, it becomes 1 hour long. So basically, you are out of the game if you receive that punishment. Now, taking it right back to January 1995 or 96, couldn't quote me on it. I know it's definitely around about that time. I'm in a jail and the drug tests have just come out, and this is how it works in some way, right? You get random drug test, which is your name's in a computer and it gets spat out, and they just knock on the door and says, your name's come up for a drug test, mate. You got to come down to the place where we do it and get it done, basically. Or you've got suspicion. An officer sees some funny movements on the landing, or he knocks on the door and some funny shuffling's going on in the cell, and he says, right, I just saw a bit of stuff that rolls the joints, or smell of puff, or smell of gear, or a bit of foil there, or, he can put you in by saying suspicion of taking drugs, so that they will appear at your door first thing in the morning to bring you down there for a drug test. Now, what Uncle Yammy's asking today is success or failure. Both things. Has it changed the old days where you misbehaved, you got nicked with something, you misbehaved, you got wrapped up, thrown down the block? But no carrots dangling around ya, where much changes by way of your status in prison. So if we break it down properly, you say you got an addict, right? You got an addict, he's addicted to puff, he's addicted to gear, he's addicted to drink. I think they did bring out one for drink. I'm not sure if they did a test for alcohol, I'm not sure, but I heard it was coming in. I don't know how far I'm behind in that one there. But when it first opened, you can guess what? I was at the top first 5 to get reasonable suspicion drug test. Failed for 1 or 2, 3 different things, in which case, I don't know whether it was the governor then or it is a charge from back then, from the beginning of time when they came out in the middle 90s, that you would have to go and sit in front of an independent board, and for A-class drugs in your system, you lose 1 month. If it's a bit of cannabis, not so bad. 14 days, 7 days, even some days, a little suspended sentence and a little pat on your back. Don't worry. Whether you lot are aware or not, common knowledge amongst the old lot, me lot, that many were puff smokers before those drug tests came in. And weed, ash, stay in your system 28 days, depending on your usage. You can do it for 7 days, and many people have to start drinking water to get rid of it out of their system. And most of the time, though, it stays in your system well over 3 weeks. If it's constant use, there's no way out of it, you're going to fail for cannabis. So all the bright ideas from the great convicts from back in the day, all the great names, sadly, ended up being A-class addicts. Because why? 3 days, it comes out your system. And if you're after results parole, if you're an A cat, you want to get down to a B. If you're a B cat and you want to win your next review and get down to a C. And even better than that, if you're a C cat and you're looking home, if you're looking D cat, to get closer to home, to start getting home leaves, to resettle into the community, where you start working outside from the open prison that you're at. So if you have any adjudications by way of nickings, for whatever they are, it could stop your progress. Now, right. Hold on a minute, 1 second, bear with me. So, the two are intertwined, right? Because round about the same time as the drug test came out, correct me if I'm wrong, they brought out the basic, which means the lower end of the scale of bad behavior. Standard, meaning that it's all right, you get to keep your TV, your standard, but your money will be better than basic, because £2.50 on basic ain't really going to help you a lot. Standard, I think you get a tenner plus where you work, and the wages will mount up together, tie them all in for a tidy 16, 17 quid. Or you're in the big league, the enhanced league, where you get 20 odd quid mixed with your private. Private spends will be about 20 odd quid plus where you work. So you're talking about some good wages with your private spends of about 30 something quid, which can do a lot in there when you ain't got nothing. So the phone calls, the cubicle phone calls with the phone cards came out before the privilege schemes, the drug testing scheme, the basic, standard, enhanced regime. What makes me laugh is that if you are an addict and you ain't got no control over your addiction, for one, not sticking up for the addict so much, but the truth be known, you're taken away by punishing you. You're on standard, you've got a decent money, so you're not going to get into too much debt. You can balance the books out so that you can get to pay off your debts. But all of a sudden you're on basic, you ain't going to be able to pay off the debt. So that's more trouble for you as well, right? So the TV is the good one, because they say if you break a rule and you're on standard, you will drop that from that status down to basic and you will lose your TV. Criminals, majority, adverse behavior, when things are not going their way or you take certain things away from them, they can react from an extreme level of, this is what I think of your TV, come out on the landing and smash it to smithereens. He's really hurt. He ain't going to be able to watch Coronation Street tonight or watch the football. So he's basically turning around and saying, like I used to a couple of times, I'm better off down the seg then, because the basic regime is run like you're down the segregation, because you get half-hour visits, which you get when you're down the block, or limited exercise. You don't get to see too many people. Your unlock times are going to be different from everybody else, if you get what I mean. But the sad truth is of all this is, witnessing my last bits in jail, you could be a drug dealer, you could have a favourite officer or whatever, and you get all these write-ups, positive feedbacks, because an officer every day has to write something in the book, whether you've been good, bad, or you look like you was kind of in a bad mood, or you look like you was up for it, or you was really having a happy day, in that kind of line of thing. They're all positive entries. So you could get, say, Mr. D, Mr. E, Mr. F. Mr. F, please write me up a positive entry, so that, so if you've dropped to basic with all those positive entries, by the next time your review comes up, you can, positive report there, positive there, whoever's sitting in senior officer or whatever, right, you're ready to come off basic to come back up to standard. Now, there are extreme cases of when you're on enhanced and you get nicked for a fight, or you get nicked on a visit, or you fail a drug test, and you can drop from being a real privileged model prisoner in some senses, if there is such a word. Uncle Yammy doesn't. You can drop from enhanced to basic in one swoop. Really, you're meant to drop from enhanced to standard. Majority of the time probably takes place. But then there are times when you drop all the way. So your work thing becomes in jeopardy. Your phone calls, because you can't get enough credit to put on the phones now to phone your people regularly. Your visits are going to be interrupted because the extra privilege one with enhanced, instead of 2 a month, you get 3. Standard, the same old 2 a month. Basic, like I've already told you, you get 1 visit or 2 or 30 minutes duration. So all around, if you are a basic prisoner, you lose your right to basically everything. So you know my way of doing it wasn't the right way to do it, is that I would be, all right, put me down a sec then. And you know they don't like it. They don't like, one second, sorry about this. They don't like you saying, all right then, I'm not staying up here if I've got nothing to look forward to. I'll go down to the segregation. Right? So the one thing they don't like these days is the segregations being full. Statistically, you're always watching the numbers in there so that they produce their own set of records to the inspectors. We ain't getting a lot of trouble. Look, the blocks are near enough empty, kind of thing. Like we're over it. We're in control of what's going on, because you don't want to be labelled in the top 10, 20 prisoners. Being a governor, you don't want to be in that bottom 10 where your nick is being statistically stated that it's not running smoothly. And what can you do about it, basically, right? Now, my view is they should have kept it as the old days. You just take it for whatever it is. If you're falling out with stuff, because on the other hand, a man, if you got a 2-week review, right? Say if you're on basic, and you know, there's a lot of troubled prisoners these days, much more mental health than the old days. You could be on basic for 2 weeks where you're suffering, and you know, you have to prove legitimately good behavior by way of, say, good reports like from daily officers who's writing you up. But then you get one, you don't really do that much, he's got it in for you, he's got a hard on for you, and he basically turns around, writes you up bad. So when you go and sit on your review, what was all that about? You argued with an officer that day, blah, blah, well, I'm going to leave it another week until I review it again. Boy, red rag to a bull. Do you see what I mean? The privilege scheme of enhanced, standard, basic, to drug testing, for me, like many other things that were introduced when they had the 2 strike law with the prisoners, the IPP laws, all these things that are meant to make our places safer, ready for rehabilitation, resettlement, to prevent them coming out and committing crime, giving them the opportunities. You, by doing that to one of those inmates, are setting them back to their future plans, basically. And once you're on the slippery slope going all the way down and you're constantly on basic, and there's some inmates with mental health who like to be on basic because they're hidden away and they don't want to see anyone, they're hiding from debt and that kind of stuff. So it works in so many different ways, right? There. All right, the money aside, it helps. Because if you're enhanced or you're seeing your people regular, it's going to help with your time. It's going to help with your engaging with the outside world, and it's going to make your time easier to do. But is it done fairly? Depending on who the personal officer is, depending on who likes you, who doesn't. Because we know officers or inmates, you all got the same human kind of makeup. You're going to have bad days and you're going to have good days. Uncle Yammy says to you today, I don't want to babble on too much about this today because I've got more to come up with today. I'm saying to you, unsuccessful. Oh God. Unsuccessful. Never, ever worked, and still not working. Because you could have a man who's peddling, making loads of money, and you know there's bent staff everywhere now, that he can just tick all the boxes for you and get you the prize of what you're going to get by way of extra visits, by a better job as an orderly, your category reduces, your risk reduces. You can be now allowed to get to the kitchen job because these risks have been addressed in some kind of way. But yet, for the addict, you get nothing because you lose all around. You're an addict for the simple reason you're meant to be getting some kind of help, really. There's courses for addiction, we know, rap, all those kind of things. And that's meant to tick your box for when release comes. Because if your crimes are drug related, which is whether you declare it or not when you come in, any failure of drugs is a suggestion that when you get out, you're at risk to the public. Because they're saying, well, if you're still on drugs and that was your main way of committing crime or the reasons behind it, you are, you're on the back foot straight away. When the help for the addict is more of me, I'm a believer in that because I'm going to be sympathetic towards the addict. But what I'm not going to agree with today is the fact that there are too many strings that can be pulled to appear that somebody's doing really well and you've ticked this box and that book, depending if you're all right with that gov and that gov. So you get some that are nicked with phones, say. You get nicked with phones, you are meant to be, now that's an outside charge, getting nicked with a blower, right? You're meant to go from enhanced straight down to basic. You are out of the game. Doesn't necessarily work so. You can still be all right with a senior officer, because remember, that's always governors that you get to see on these reviews. They can be senior officers. They can set you targets even, right? But there's always something that goes with something as well. You're on a no losing streak because that officer's always going to have something over to you. If he knows you're working towards getting down in category, making your prison time a little bit easier, you could have 1 day left on that review and he will put in a bad negative entry, and that's you're on review again for another couple of weeks, which is going to make your time and make your mental state be even worse than the first time round. So the telly helped. Did it? Telly helped, but I got to that stage where I wasn't really interested into the TV, to be honest. Old style prisoners, like a lot of us, the ones we've talked about, Razor, etc., would probably have preferred the old studying ones, get your books, go behind your door. In them old days, you weren't really, you couldn't cook in a kettle, you couldn't pull off all these little moves to do these things, you get nicked into mead. You couldn't even argue back with a screw without the bell going off and you being in trouble or being belittled in some ways. They've slowed down a bit. They're still jumping on people now for not many reasons. I was seeing incidences before I came home where the person wasn't even arguing back and the geezer's officer's having a bad day, and straight away he's got the power. His staff's got to come and back you up and jump all over you. So where is it? Show me success or failure or both. Show me how any of these IP schemes that ever came out, if it is proven that it does work. Of course, the dangling of carrots with the extra gym sessions. You know that a lot of men don't want to be on basic. They start shrinking, don't they? Because they can't push the iron and they're not getting enough money to eat. So all of a sudden they feel vulnerable and kind of thing. And I've had 28 days on basic. God, I want to start training again. They will do anything for that extra gym session. Trust me. That's the one thing that a lot of prisoners want and don't want to lose is their gym sessions. So by setting all the things out that you're not allowed to do, because if you do, you're going to lose this, lose that. The one thing they always forgot to realize is that most of us criminals are subversive and aversive to being told no. When we're told no, you can't do that, from the beginning of time, it's been noted very, very carefully that we don't like to take it. We don't like to be disrespected. But like I said, the mental health is so real now in prison, with the amount of prisoners that are suffering bad, the new clucks of spice where everybody's zombied out every day. anything to get your time done. You know, can you really be punished for being broken-hearted and going on to drugs? We know the one by going on to A class when you was only a B class smoker. Now forever and today you've had the flavour for it. You come out here and you're using A class when in the beginning of time you wasn't an A class drug taker before you went to prison. But you are now. And that's caused by the way the schemes are run. We need to take a long, hard look at the whole system and revamp it all. Go back to the old days where it is in black and white, that if you have a fight or you break the rules or you go on a visit or whatever, you get your punishment for that day. For what it's worth, what you've committed by way of breaking the rules, you get that punishment that day, and don't go into, right, that's happened, you lost that, and you lost that. Because you're getting double bubble on basically everything. I'm going to do a part 2 on this after. I didn't want to babble. It's too long, 20 minutes. But Uncle Yammy saying it wasn't a success. Like the overcrowding, you never got to the grips or the fluxes of what it actually means by someone getting a 2 tariff and leaving him in there for a 10 stretch for a car offence of some kind that went badly wrong, or he got a 2-year sentence, which would have been a 4-year sentence. How can a man end up spending 10, 12 years behind the door now, going to be seriously damaged and seriously angry to coming out and saying, look how hard done by I've been? Many could say, do the crime, accept it, what they've done. You've got to be able to take the rough with the smooth. But you've got to have the element of fairness, and you've got to have the element of fair play, and realistically, the ins, the outs, the pluses, the minuses, all the things in common. I don't think they thought through many things. But I can tell you one thing, the incidents that take place now in prison on a consistent level, where there's bad behaviour every day, back in the day, those things that happen 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times a day, with that bill going off, shortchanging someone's journey to education, where they're trying to better themselves, the alarm goes off, they can't even reach the destination. That class could have been beneficial to their future. All right, they can come back to the cell and get into doing their work there. But it slows down the progress of everyone. When in the old days, the bell gets rung, you get what you're getting, you're off the wing, and everything's back to normal. Now, you get an incident, it takes so long to clear up. You don't even get your association in the morning. You've missed out. It takes 2 hours to do a roll count and all that. And basically your day's done because of somebody else's kind of misbehavior has prevented the regime running smoothly. Understaffed, one of the things, we've had that argument for long enough. I say, just normal common sense sometimes can prevail. I'll be up later. More monologues today. Sending loads of love.